Hello viewers, welcome back. Today we'll discuss about syncing and sourcing input module and input device. As we know, there are two types of input module. One is called DC, digital input module. Another is called analog input module. Today we'll discuss about digital input module. Digital input can be either sources or sink for DC current, and this depends on the transistor used in the input card and polarity of the DC supply in the module. If the NPN transistor used in the input module, then current will be sinking. Let's see the diagram. Here, current from the supply through the load to ground when NPN transistor will switched on, and this current is called the sinking current to ground. When PNP transistor used in the module, and that time current will be sources. And now see the diagram. If current will flow from supply to load when PNP transistor is switched on, and this current is called the sources current to load. Now we will see some example. Here is an input module with a common supply negative of the power supply. So there are 16 input and connected one input device to IX.0. This input device connected from the DC power supply. This input device could be active or passive. If the input device power supply to energize and switch it to auxiliary contact, it's called the active input device. Proximity sensor is a active input device, and it is energized by power supply, and when object detect, it's turn on the switch. If a device not required power supply to energized and give a output contact, that device is called the passive device. Our limit switch and push switch is a passive device. It's not need power supply, it's need physical contact to change the condition of the contact. So active input device can be NPN or PNP. If a input device gives a output 0 volt after changing, that means that input device is a NPN. If the input device gives a 24 volt output, that input device is called PNP, input active device. Let's back to this example. When this input device is switched on, that time current flow from this input device to module. Let's see another example. Here the input module is connected to L+. L+ means 24 volt supply, and this input device is connected from the 0 volt of the DC supply and connected to IX.0. When this input device is switched on, that time current flow from the input module to input device to ground. So from these two example, we can tell which one will be sourcing and which one will be sinking. If the current flow from the input device to input module, then it's called the input device is sourcing and input module is syncing. Now let's think reverse. If the current flow from the input module to input device, then input module will be sourcing and input device will be syncing. So current flow into the input module, then input module will be syncing, and if the current flow out of the input module, then input module will be sourcing. So sourcing and syncing depends on the current flow. If the input device is sourcing, then input module must be syncing and vice versa. Let's summarize the learning. Digital input module will detect one of the two possible conditions of input device, open or close. Sourcing input module, common is positive. Syncing input module, common is negative. A syncing input module will have the current flow into it. Sourcing input module will have the current flow out of it. A NPN device is syncing device and PNP device is sourcing. If input device is sourcing, then module must be syncing, and this is vice versa. Thank you.